I guess our hearts are bursting this evening and this afternoon and this morning. What a wonderful thing. Before we do anything, before even I can welcome you here, um, Asian Classics Institute has asked me to read an announcement for them. Asian Classics Institute respects the policies of all governments. For this reason, we cannot accept any registrations for online programs from people who live in places where ACI is not permitted. For example, ACI teachings are not permitted within mainland China. We also block Zoom access to and from mainland China for this reason, to respect their laws. We also do not endorse any efforts made to circumvent any government policies, such as using VPNs, virtual private networks. We highly discourage anyone from trying to do so, as this may put you in danger. If we discover that you are using these technologies, we will remove you from the Zoom call. Respecting government policies and laws helps protect students and teachers everywhere. That's the end of the ACI statement. As someone personally who used to write law for state government, I know that this language may seem a little harsh. There are many reasons for using a VPN. They don't exist solely to circumvent a state government. So I would, if someone were to ask me who was using a VPN for some other reason, that you might petition ACI to allow you to continue to use it to attend classes. But that's just my personal thing. And I'll probably get into big trouble for saying this. So, okay. Welcome to class 4 of the course on the Diamond Cutter Sutra. Thank you for your interest in this course. Thank you for your participation and your attendance. Thank you for pretending to need me to teach you these things. I do appreciate so much, and I'm so honored to be able to share these teachings, these most profound and beautiful teachings. So let's be very clear and heartfelt about our motivation for being here today. And if you would like to join me in prayers, I invite you to do so. Tashi Puki Jukshin Mitotram Rirabling Shin Yende Gempadi Sange Shindu Mikte Uargi Drokun Namdak Singla Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayami. Sange Chudam Suki Chuknam La Jangchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chinyin Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Penchir Sange Chuparso Sange Chunan Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chishe Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Penchir Sange Juparsho Sange Chiran Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Chishe Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Penchir Sange Juparsho. So before we dive into this class, which is about the future of the Buddhist teachings, um, just want to see if anyone has any questions from previous classes. You are most welcome and invited to please ask. Don't feel shy. Surrounded by brilliant students. Okay, so then let's dive in. Move you over here so I can see you. Open the chat. Okay, there we go. So, Subhuti has been starting his conversation with Lord Buddha, asking questions about how should a bodhisattva think and how should they live and how should they practice, right? And we got to talk last time about some great ways to apply emptiness, the lack of self nature, to things and people, to our daily lives, to how we think and to how we live and how we practice. So now, remember, Lord Buddha said, okay, all these different kinds of beings, no matter how they're born or whether they have a body or not, whether they have a mind or not, take them all to enlightenment, to nirvana. And then he says, and don't think you've taken anyone to nirvana. You're going to take all these beings to nirvana, and there are no beings in nirvana. So Subhuti, being actually a very high level bodhisattva himself, with realizations of the nature of reality, realizations of the direct perception of emptiness. And since he's a high level bodhisattva, he's had many of the like intervening realizations that you get as you advance through the 10 bodhisattva levels. So Subhuti is mainly like, he's having this conversation with the Buddha actually for our benefit. For you, if you are who you appear to be, and for me, who are still working to understand clearly and correctly what emptiness is. He's doing they're performing a play for us with Subhuti asking questions, so that these teachings that we have now can help us advance along our spiritual journey, our path of understanding and realizations. So Subhuti, having, of course, understood what the Buddha has said, what the Buddha meant when he said, there's no one you take to nirvana, he next asks, O conqueror, what will happen in the future, in the days of the last 500, when the holy Dharma is approaching its final destruction? How could anyone living in those times ever see accurately the meaning of the explanations in sutras such as this one? So Subhuti's asking the Buddha, in the last 500 years of the existence of the holy teachings of the Buddha, their existence on this world, on this planet, how could anyone ever understand this sutra? Would there be anyone in those days when the Dharma starts to die who will understand this sutra? So that's the background. So Shakyamuni Buddha was very clear. He taught about impermanence, right? The fact that things that are brought about by causes and conditions, all caused things will end. In the very cause of a thing is its destruction. So he states the obvious, that his teachings are caused and his teachings will end. Their existence There's been this stream, they call it a gyu, a stream from the time of the Buddha down to us now, 2025, of the Buddha speaking these teachings, them being heard by people, and those people passing them on to other people, and those people practicing and learning and realizing and passing them on to other people. And so there's been this unbroken stream from the time of the Buddha to now that has, in a sense, carried these teachings to us. So that's a beautiful thing. And it's also a caused thing. It will end. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the end, or the coming to the end. Well, both. So we're going to understand a little bit more about Subhuti's question. We're going to get some ideas about, well, just when is the last 500 years? And how do we know whether we're in the last 500 years of the existence of the Buddhist teachings on this planet? So the first thing to talk about when we talk about the existence of the Buddhist teachings is to talk about something that Master Vasubandhu wrote at the end of his book called the Abhidharmakosha, the treasure house of knowledge. And he lived, if you weren't in the karma course, we talked about Master Vasubandhu. But if you weren't there, he lived around 350 of the current era. And the text that he wrote, the Abhidharmakosha, the treasure house of knowledge, is a very important book to all of Buddhism, most especially revered in Southeast Asia, in countries that are practicing what we call the Hinayana or Theravada teachings, the lower vehicle, which doesn't mean low like not important. It means teachings that are focused primarily on individual liberation, on an individual practicing the Buddhist teachings and reaching individual freedom, reaching nirvana themselves, as opposed to, for example, the greater vehicle, which is the Mahayana, which means practicing teachings related to bringing all living beings to complete and total enlightenment. And of course, the latter is the set of teachings to which this sutra belongs, right? Subhuti is asking the Buddha, how does a bodhisattva think and live and practice? And a bodhisattva, of course, has the wish to become fully enlightened in order to benefit all living beings. So anyway, Master Vasubandhu, at the end of his book, the Abhidharmakosha, he gives 4 lines, and we're going to talk about them. So First, he says, Tumpe damchu namni te, lungdang tokpe dakni do. Say Tunpe, damchu. I want to see lips moving. I see the live translators, bless your hearts. I see their lips moving. Damchu. Namni. Te. Lung. Dang. Tokpe. Takni. Do. So, Tunpa, that means the teacher. And this is a very specific word in the Tibetan language that refers to the teacher with a capital T. Thank you, Lauren. You got that's very nice. Thank you. And so when you see Tunpa, it's always referring to Shakyamuni Buddha, the teacher. Damche means holy Dharma. Holy Dharma. And it has these two words, Dham meaning holy, and Che meaning Dharma. The Sanskrit is Saddharma. Saddharma. So this is to distinguish, like there are many dharmas. Even if you're talking about dharma meaning teaching, dharma can mean different things. But even when you're talking about dharma meaning a teaching, it could be anyone who's the teaching of anyone. It could be the teaching of your mother, teaching you what words to use to call things. It could be the teachings of your music teacher who teaches you how to play an instrument. Could be the teaching of different holy people of different religions. It could be an imam, or it could be a Brahmin who's teaching. Those are dharmas as well. So when we talk about Dhamma, when we talk about the holy Dharma, we are talking specifically about the teachings of the teacher, capital T, Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay. Namni Te. Here's our clue here, Ni. So we're going to be talking about two things. The Dharma, the holy Dharma of Shakyamuni Buddha has two types. Lung. This is another word, like Che, Dharma. It can mean a lot of different things. When we're talking about Damchu, the holy Dharma, when we say Lung, we're talking about the teachings, the physical teachings. It's an abbreviation of the phrase Longiche. I'm sorry, Lungiche. So it means more than just scripture. It does mean scripture. It includes the books that contain the holy Dharma, the holy teachings. It also includes like the verbal or oral teachings. So when we talk about physical Dharma, we're talking about books, we're talking about sutras, like what the Buddha taught, like the Dhammapada Sutra. We're talking about written commentaries about what the Buddha taught. And we're also talking about, books that anyone writes about Dharma that's not a particularly specific commentary on a specific sutra. Like, for example, Geshe Michael Roach has written many books that are about the Holy Dharma that are not specifically a commentary on a text. Like, actually, he has a book called The Dhammapada, which is about the relationship between karma and emptiness, which we're going to get to in a later class in this course, but about correlations between what we do and what we experience. If things are empty of a nature of self-existence, if things come from the ripening of karmic seeds, from actions we have done in the past, then what can we do to create the kind of world that we want? Let's talk about, what world do I want? Okay, now how do I make that? What do I need to do specifically? For example, so 2 types of the holy Dharma of the teacher. We have physical teachings, the books, the commentaries, and also the oral teachings. Tang, that means and. And then we have Tokpe Che. Tokpe Che, which means the realizations of the teachings in people's minds, hearts. People often point to their hearts instead of their heads when they talk about the mind in Buddhism. You can't see that I'm pointing to my heart, but I am. So the realizations that come from listening and learning, or reading and learning, contemplating and meditating on that part of the Dharma that is the physical part of the holy teachings. They become part of us when we realize them. We actually bring them into our hearts, our minds. Dakni, that means the combination of those two, the physical teachings and the realizations of the Dharma in people's hearts. So, simple idea. The holy Dharma of the teachings of the teacher are of 2 types. Okay. We're going to take a tiny segue here before we get to the next 2 lines of Master Vasubandhu. And we're going to talk a little more deeply about these 2 types of Dharma. You may have seen this word or heard this word. It's Sanskrit. Chikpitaka. Chikpitaka. Actually, I have to do a retroflex T. Chikpitaka. Tripitaka. Tri means three, and pitaka, it's been translated, excuse me, as basket, like basket. I don't have one, but a basket that holds things. Tibetans call them groups, like three groups. So the whole, if we look at the whole canon of Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings, they're divided into three groups or three baskets. And we can think about them as being the representation of the physical Dharma. But we have to remember it also includes these other things like commentaries and oral teachings. But so the Buddhist canon has these three big parts. The first one is called Dulva. Dulva. The Sanskrit is Vinaya. And this refers to vowed morality, ethics. There are 8 different sets of vowed morality. The first 3 sets are for lay people, people who are householders. That's another word for them, people who are not ordained. And then the last 5 sets are vowed morality for monastics, monks and nuns. The next basket is called Dode. Dode. And that means sutra in Sanskrit. So this is one of the big baskets of text. So we've used the word sutra before, and this is another word that can have many different meanings. Sutra can mean the word of the Buddha. Sutra can mean short or brief. And then here, sutra is used not just to refer to the actual words of the Buddha, of Shakyamuni Buddha, but it includes the commentaries of Indian masters and Tibetan masters, right? So it's not just the word of the Buddha. So we need to understand how this word, Dode or sutra, is being used to understand what they're talking about. So this is that basket of teachings, and we're going to have to get more into that a little bit. The next basket is called Ngumpa. Ngumpa. And that means Abhidharma in Sanskrit. And in English, it basically means wisdom or knowledge. So we have those 3 baskets of Vinaya, Sutra, and Abhidharma. So if we take all the sutras in the Buddhist canon, we can put them in different baskets, in these three baskets. Turning over to the realizations of the Buddhist teachings in people's hearts, we talk about another set of three. So we have the three baskets. Now we're going to talk about the three extraordinary trainings. They're called Hlakpe, Labba, Sum. Hlakpe, Labda, Sum. Hlakpa means extraordinary. Extraordinary. Labba, actually it's Lappa, high tone, Lappa. That means training as a noun, as a thing. And Sum, meaning three. And then this phrase that we have here, Lakpe Lapa Sum, La Lopa, at the end, La Lopa. And La Lopa, this word, Lopa, is the verb form of the word Lapa. So here you could say you're training in trainings. You're training, verb, in trainings, things to be trained in. So to help keep things a little less confusing, we usually translate this as practice. We're practicing in the three extraordinary trainings. To help make that a little more clear in, at least in English. Now, just a small note, for those of you who are doing the Tibetan part of the course, you're using Tibetan in your answers when you do your homework and quizzes. The answer key forgets this part of the phrase. It forgets to include the word Hlakpe. And that's an important distinction, which we're not going to get too deep into in this class, but it is important, this word extraordinary. They're not just any old trainings. We're talking about the extraordinary trainings. And those three are the extraordinary training of morality, the extraordinary training of concentration, and the extraordinary training of wisdom. So, to attain realizations in one's heart, what we do are the three extraordinary trainings. We do the extraordinary training of morality, the extraordinary training of concentration, and the extraordinary training of wisdom. So when going back to our three baskets of physical teachings, how do we know which sutra relates to which basket? And here the two types of threes the three baskets and the three extraordinary trainings are related, are associated. So if the subject matter of a sutra is about vowed morality, or about, I should say, the extraordinary training of morality, then it goes into the Vinaya basket. So we know that there's a lot written from the Theravadan perspective about the vows of liberation, and those obviously would go into the Vinaya basket. There are also many books about Bodhisattva vowed morality, of what those Bodhisattva vows are, how one lives them, including this sutra that we're studying. So that could also go in the Vinaya basket. We can have a good debate about which basket this sutra should go into. But then there are also, in the Diamond Way texts, there are Diamond Way texts or Tantra texts that are about vowed morality, the vows you take when you get permission to practice a particular Diamond Way deity. So those teachings could also go into the Vinaya basket, the morality basket. If the teaching is mainly concerned with the second extraordinary training on concentration, and again, we're not going to get really deeply into it. This is just to identify the three baskets and the three extraordinary trainings and how they're related. And as you continue to study, you'll learn more deeply what these things mean. But anyway, so if a text or a teaching is primarily concerned, excuse me, with the extraordinary training on concentration, it goes into the sutra basket, the second basket. And then if a teaching is on primarily related to the extraordinary training of wisdom, then it goes in the Abhidharma basket. Okay. So just, I know that it wasn't too deep, but we've got our sketch of the three types of physical teachings, physical highest Dharma, and the three types of realizations of the Dharma in our hearts, in those three extraordinary trainings. Now, how does this all relate to the goal of this sutra, which is reaching total and complete enlightenment? If we don't perceive the main subject of the Diamond Cutter Sutra, which is the lack of a self-nature to things and people, we won't be able to collect the vast amount of merit that we need in order to become fully enlightened. And we talked a little bit about this in the Karma course. We have to create huge piles have a huge collection of merit in order to attain enlightenment. Oh, I'm going to have to really speed up. I can't believe I just spent 45 minutes. Okay, I'll go through this more quickly. So if we don't perceive emptiness directly, we can't create all the merit we need in order to become fully enlightened. So we can say that the only way that you can collect unlimited virtue is by understanding emptiness. And the Dhammapada Sutra is going to say this over and over again. If you don't have wisdom, you cannot reach enlightenment. Impossible. If you don't perform your good deeds with wisdom, with the understanding, the knowledge of how things exist, then you can't reach it. And you can't see emptiness directly. You can't have a direct perception of emptiness unless your mind is at the preliminary level of the form realm. In other words, unless your mind is extremely concentrated. Your mind is very fine, very subtle state of perfect concentration. So there's that link between concentration and wisdom. Full Buddhahood depends on wisdom. Wisdom depends on concentration. Concentration depends on morality. It's impossible to focus our minds if we are very sloppy with watching our behavior, watching our speech, watching our thoughts, watching our actions. If we're harming others, even if it's like by mistake, or, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to yell. I just lost it, if we're not very careful in how we keep our morality, how we avoid harming others, including ourselves, we won't be able to concentrate. Our mind will be disturbed by having harmed others. So we can't concentrate if we don't have a clear conscience. So morality is required for concentration. If we have done some negative thing, and that thing disturbs our mind, and we all know it, we all have done things that we regret, and they continue to haunt us. They bother our peace of mind. Haunt like a ghost haunts. So we go through the process of purifying negative deeds we have done. So, and if it's a particularly nasty thing, like when I was a kid, I lived in a different desert than this one that's far more dry. And we had a black widow spider, a particular kind of spider that is venomous. Its bite is poisonous to humans. And there was a black widow spider on the sidewalk right outside, as we opened our front door. I was going out with my mom, and we opened the door, and there was this black widow spider. And so it's very frightening, and my mom stepped on it, and it turns out that spider was pregnant, and the babies were just about to be born. So by her stepping on them, it was literally hundreds and hundreds of tiny baby spiders that went running out in all directions. And so I went out stomping, stomp, 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 stomp. And so I killed hundreds of beings on purpose that day. This is before I knew about karma. And nevertheless, still, it's a story that stayed with me. I never felt good about it, having killed all these beings. And so if it's an act like that, we have to purify it like over and over and over again to reduce the power of the karmic seeds that were created by that action. So these three, the extraordinary training of morality, concentration, and wisdom, are cause and effect related, right? These three trainings are practiced even before we reach the first of the 5 paths. We reach the first path on our spiritual journey when we have renunciation, when we have the thought night and day, Bulgarian Rinpoche says, that nothing in this world that we're experiencing, none of our experiences, we don't believe that feeling good or feeling bad comes from outside towards us. We renounce. Renunciation is renouncing or denying what, like everyone else on the planet thinks, which is that, the reason things hurt is that someone's doing something bad to you. Or the reason you feel good is because, ice cream tastes good. We renounce that. And then we're on the first path. But these 3 trainings are something we do to begin our spiritual journey. And we continue doing them throughout our spiritual journey as we advance through the paths. And you can see why we're refining our practice as time goes on, understanding more deeply, practicing with a more, it goes from our head, when we practice the Dharma, when we start out, we're mainly just thinking about things. It's very intellectual. And as we continue our journey, it becomes more in our hearts. The teachings become part of us. Okay. Now I'm going to speed. So what does it mean for these 2 types of teachings to survive? And Master Vasubandhu, going back to the Abhidharmakosha, he explains what it means for them to survive. How do we know that these 2 types of holy Dharma still exist on our planet? And then what is the point at which we can say that the Dharma is still alive, or when it's gone, when it's dead? So what's required? I think I'm just going to, I will speak the Tibetan. You will have the Tibetan document when it gets uploaded to the platform. But I have so much to cover that I need to just speed along. So what's required for the physical teachings to survive is, it's called Deidzin Chepa, Zin Chepa, which means to preserve it. And it's preserved, the physical teachings, as long as matje, which means someone is teaching it correctly. So as long as someone is teaching it correctly, the physical Dharma still exists. It's preserved, it's protected. There's another kind of issue with the answer key. And the answer key for question 2A gives a slightly different Tibetan. You can use, I do have to, I'm sorry, I do have to show the Tibetan. Deidzin Chepa Mache. The answer key gives a slightly different answer, which is Lung Shin Du Shen La Mewa. Which, well, Lung remembers physical teachings. Shindu means according to, here meaning properly or in accordance with. Shen means others. Shenla means to others. And Mawa means to speak. So it's similar to what Geshe Michael said when he taught this, which is Desen Jepa Ma Je. He didn't include, and what Master Vasubandhu said in the text. This wasn't just Geshe Michael. Master Vasubandhu in his text says Desen Jepa Ma Je. Anyway, so that's what's required for the physical teachings to survive. Now, what's required for realizations, Dharma in the minds of beings, is Drupar Chepa, which Drupar, let's see, where do I have it? There it is, Drupar Chepa. Drupar means to practice, and Chepa means to do that practice. So you're accomplishing the practice that's going to lead you to realizations. So as long as people are teaching properly, the physical Dharma remains. As long as people are practicing properly, the realizations in the minds, the Dharma that is the realization in people's minds, is still in existence on the planet. Kona Yin, only that, nothing else. So those are the two tests for whether Dharma still exists in the world. When we talk about the Dharma going out of existence, it's not like it's going, full speed ahead, and then one day it just stops. There's a gradual degradation, a gradual decline in both. So, which one do you think would end first? Realization in people's hearts, or the physical teachings, the books and the oral teachings? Yeah, realizations are what die out first. That kind of Dharma is the first to die out. People can still be teaching Dharma, but nobody practices. Or the books can still exist in a library or in a database, but nobody reads them, right? So those can be around, can live a lot longer than the realization in people's hearts. Okay, Master Vasubandhu continues a description of what it's going to be like as the Dharma dies out. And it is depressing, because we lived a lot later in time than Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha was over 2,500 years ago from us. So we should know where we are in this stage of decline of the Buddhist teachings. I mean, and we can see, just even, at least in my lifetime, being the age that I am, I have seen there are far fewer Tibetan masters, Tibetan lamas, who have gone through the entire course of study at monasteries, who are around anymore. There's only just a couple of them left. I've seen many of them pass away. I was so fortunate to receive teachings before they did. But, I have the sense that things they seem to be rapidly deteriorating, rapidly falling apart. So it's a dangerous situation. Without people who have studied and practiced well and can pass on the teachings correctly and properly, then things start to get added into the teachings or forgotten from the teachings. And so, like, the quality of what is taught can just starts to decline, starts to deteriorate, which means that people don't really have the information they need in order to practice and have realizations. So it's serious. So how long is this period of deterioration? Chuni Lama, Chuni Drakpa Shedrup, we're studying his commentary of the Diamond Cutter Sutra. He goes through and lists many different, should you call them prophecies? Maybe so. Many different prophecies about exactly how long the Dharma will still exist in the world. How long is this period of time before we we cannot say that the Dharma exists on this planet. So I'm just going to list these sutras, highlight the name of it in Tibetan for you, for those who care. When you can write it down. The first is called Sotren Chen Tokju, and that is the Sutra of the Golden Age. And here, when we use the word sutra, we mean spoken by the Buddha. So Shakyamuni Buddha says in the Sutra of the Golden Age, the teachings will last for 500 years after I pass, in its pure form. And then after that, for another 1,500 years, 1,500, it will be still around, but it will be a shadow of its former self. It won't be as pure. So 2,000 years total. Then Chani Lama quotes, oh, I got the wrong name. Sorry, that was Tode Kelsang. That is the Sutra of the Golden Age. My apologies. Tode Kelsang. Then there's the Sotren Chenki Tokju. And this is, it's a sutra, but it's about the life story of a person named Anguliama. No, not that. I always mispronounce this word. Angulimala. Angulimala. And his name is Sortreng, which means a rosary of fingers. Sortreng, a rosary of fingers. This is the fellow who existed in Shakyamuni Buddha's time, who had, he wasn't a student of the Buddha. He had some teacher who told him that the way to become enlightened is to kill 1,000 peoples and take a finger from each person and sew it into a rosary. And so he was walking around wearing this rosary of fingers that he had chopped off of people he had killed. And he had 999 fingers on his rosary, and he wanted to kill the Buddha and put Shakyamuni Buddha's finger on his rosary. Try as he might, and he tried very hard. He could not catch the Buddha ever. Whenever he would go to reach out and grab him, the Buddha would be, scurrying away that much faster. He couldn't do it. Eventually, after trying for so long, he, got to hear some teachings because he was always chasing him. And he started thinking about those teachings and abandoned his quest to kill 1,000 people. So in that sutra, the Buddha says that the teachings will remain for 1,000 years. Then there's a sutra called Dawe Ningpoi Do. Dawa is the moon. Ningpo is essence. So sutra on essence of the moon. And in that sutra, it says that the Dharma will last for 2,000 years after the Buddha's passing. Then there's another sutra, and it's called Nyingje Pekar. Nyingje Pekar. Nyingje, you may have heard this word. Nyingje means compassion. Karuna in Sanskrit. And Pekar is an abbreviation of Pema Karpo. Pema is lotus, and Karpo is white. So this is there are many sutras that have white lotus in the title. And this one is the White Lotus of Compassion Sutra. And in that sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha says that the teachings will last for 1,500 years, 1,500. Then there's another sutra that Chuni Lama talks about, and this one is called Hlamo Trima Mepe Shupa. Hlamo means goddess. Drima means stainless. And the goddess of stainless light. And in this sutra, which is, it has a different title in the database, different from what Chuni Lama has in his book. It includes this word which means light, goddess of flawless light. Klamo's goddess. Drima is stained. Mepa means it's unstained, not stained. Means light. Sutra of the goddess of flawless light. And in that sutra, the Buddha says that the teachings will exist for 2,500 years, 2,500 years after his passing. And there's some interesting prophecies in that sutra, because he talks about Dong Marchen. Dong Marchen means red-faced people. So after 2,500 years, the teachings will go to the red-faced people, like me. I'm a red-faced person, or pink-faced people. In other words, Buddha's moving from Asia, where they talk about people as yellow-faced people, and it goes to the red-faced people 2,500 years after the Buddha. So that's interesting. So this just talks about how it goes to their land, it goes to their country, and the Dharma spreads there. So those are like 6 different sutras. So the Buddha gives 6 different prophecies about how long the teachings will be existing. Then Chuni Lama talks about 2 different Indian commentaries. So remember, these are commentaries on sutras of the teachings of the Buddha, but they're written by Indian masters. Quite some time after the Buddha passed into his final nirvana. So the first commentary that he mentions is Su Rangdrao, and this means this is the auto commentary of the Abhidharmakosha. So of course, being an auto commentary, it was written by Master Vasubandhu. And in that book, Master Vasubandhu says that the Buddha said that it will be 1,000 years. And he references the Buddha's teachings on minor precepts of the Vinaya. So that's his citation. And so 1,000 years would have been just 150 years after Master Vasubandhu's time on this planet. So Master Vasubandhu says it's 1,000 years that they'll last. The next commentary that Chuni Lama talks about is Dorchuk Gidrelpar Kamalashila. Dorchuk. That sounds familiar, right? From way back in our first class. It's the Diamond Cutter Sutra. Dorchuk. Yeah, very good, Milan. Thank you. And Drelpa is a commentary. And this means, of or by Kamalashi. They just used his Sanskrit name, Kamalashila. So in Master Kamalashila's commentary to the Diamond Cutter Sutra, he says Chedang Sumtong, which is a kind of funny way of saying 2,500 years. He actually says, take 500 years and remove it from 3,000 years. That's what Chedang Sumtong literally means, but it means 2,500 years. Then there's another commentary, and this one is on the perfection of wisdom in 1,000 verses. And it's called Bhumtvika. So this is what they call Sanskritized Tibetan, where, like with Kamalashila's name, how they spelled it here, to sort of look like Sanskrit to them. Of course, this is our using Roman characters to make Tibetan look like a Western language. So we're all doing it. That's what Tvika is. It means commentary. I think it's Tika in Sanskrit, actually. But this book is called Bhumtvika. Bhumtvika. And Bhum means the perfection of wisdom sutra in 100,000 verses. That's what Bhum means, 100,000. So in that sutra, the Buddha says 5,000 years. So we have a range of dates from 500 years plus another 1,500 in a lesser form. We have 1,000 years. We have 2,000 years. We have 2,500 years. And now we have 5,000 years. So Chuni Lama, he goes along with that last reference, that last commentary on the perfection of wisdom sutra in 100,000 verses that says 5,000 years. And he explains why. And we're going to very quickly go through why. The first thing he does is he breaks down this 5,000 year period into equal pieces of 500 years each. So for 500 years after the Buddha's passing, this will happen. Then the next 500 years after that, so 1,000 years after the Buddha's passing, this will so on up to 5,000 years. So in the first division is called the era of results. The era of results. And remember, we talked about that of the two types of the teachings, the realizations in people's minds and the physical teachings, that the realizations would die out first. So this first era is talking about how the holy Dharma that lives in the minds of beings dies out. In the first period, lots of people are becoming arhats, are reaching nirvana. In the second 500 years, a lot of people reach the state of a non-returner, which means that it's an arhat, but it's someone who still has some karma they need to burn off. Non-returner means that they will not be born again in the desire realm. That's what it means to not return, but they will still come back in a higher realm until they've worked through those negative karmas that are still there. They're not creating new negative karma. So they're very, very, very high level. Then they call them, I just wanted to say this word, chirmindok, which means that they don't turn back from the Dharma they have realized, right? They don't fall back and start doing nasty things. That doesn't happen. Then the third is the third 500 years. There will be a lot of people who become stream enterers. And a stream enterer is code word for someone who has perceived directly emptiness. Because once you see emptiness directly in that state of meditation, that's at the introductory level of the form realm, your mind is so concentrated, so clear, so subtle, and it remains focused unwaveringly on the absence of self-existence. At that point, you are on a road that will lead you to enlightenment. On the Mahayana path, full enlightenment. On a lower path, nirvana. So, Chunni Lama mentions those three. There's actually also a fourth that is considered among the great results of practicing Buddhism. And the fourth result, which Chunni Lama again doesn't mention, is a chirongwa, which means a person who is a once returner, a person who will, we call him an arhat or her an arhat, but they must return one more time to a birth in the desire realm. Okay, next we have, so those are the realizations. And those are gone after that period of time. So in this calculation of Chunni Lamas, that is 1,500 years. He doesn't include that fourth one. So 1,500 years for the era of results. Then the next era, the next group, is called the era of practice. So these are where the first one, there's a lot of people who are practicing the extraordinary training of wisdom. And that's before you reach the first path. And then after that comes people who are practicing the extraordinary training of concentration. And after that, people who are practicing the extraordinary training of morality. So it's going from highest level of practice. Remember, they're training in extraordinary training. They are practicing. Some people are achieving results. It's not that after 1,500 years, no one ever saw emptiness directly again after that. It's that you go from it being like popular, like many people, like lots of people who were becoming arhats, or, when in the Buddhist time, people were reaching nirvana right and left, at least these are the stories that are told. So we're down to, in the era of practice, we're at our fourth 500-year period. We have people practicing the extraordinary training of wisdom. And then fifth, it becomes far more popular, or more higher occurrence of people who are practicing extraordinary training of concentration. And then the third one is becomes far more popular, that more people are practicing the extraordinary training in morality. Then there's the era of the physical Dharma, right? So at the end of these 6 periods, 3,000 years, you can say that the Dharma, as it exists in people's minds, is nearly gone. Again, it can happen for a few people here and there, but it's not occurring popularly on the planet. So we call it the end of the Tokpecha, the Dharma as it exists in realizations in people's minds. So next is the era of physical Dharma. And again, we go in the same level. 3,500 years, then the teachings in the Abhidharma basket, teachings related to the extraordinary training of wisdom, right? And then the next 500 years after that, it's the sutra basket, teachings related to the extraordinary training of concentration. And then the next 500 years after that, teachings related to the Vinaya basket, which are about extraordinary trainings of morality, right? So those of you quick with your calculators know that we've now reached 4,500 years. Chuni Lama says that there's, in this last 500, and remember, this is how we started the class, in the last 500, taksam, taksam. There will be just a trace, just like when you light a match and you blow it out, there's this little waft of smoke that exists for just a short period of time. And that was just a sign that there had been a flame there. So it's like that. It's just a trace of the Dharma still remains in the last 500 years. So now I still have more I need to say, and I will say it at the beginning of the next class. But at least we can understand now more deeply why it is that Shariputra asks this question of Shakyamuni Buddha. How can anyone understand this sutra in the last 500? Because all the rest of it is mostly gone. There's just a trace left. How can anyone understand? So we leave on that cliffhanger. Of course, when you do the reading, you'll find out how the Buddha responds. But on next Wednesday, I will talk about the little bit that's left for this class. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your practice. Live translators, you really continue to amaze me. I'm so appreciative of what you do. And thank you, Geshe Michael, for these teachings. And please, when we hang up from the Zoom call, please dedicate this karma that you've created by attending this course and this class today in particular towards your highest motivation. Please don't forget. Don't let it slip away. We need all the good karma we can get here in the last 500. Okay, thank you so much. And have a great weekend. And I'll see you on Wednesday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, Utpala. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, teacher. Please stay and keep teaching us.
Thank you so much, teacher.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, teacher, so much.
Thank you, teacher. Good night.